Everybody, Chuck Holton here, coming to you from Armenia. I'm in the capital of Yerevan tonight, and it is about 9:30 p.m. here in Armenia. Now, there's a lot going on in the Middle East. The neighbors of Armenia to the south, Iran, are embroiled in a war, all-out war with Israel, to the extent that it's possible for them. We're going to talk more about that later. And so I'm going to give you a quick rundown, quick update on how the war is going and what we might see coming up in the next few days. But suffice it to say, Israel's opening gambit for the conflict has gone extremely well for them. Iran has gotten its licks in as well. And because of that, this is quite a contest. This is quite a contest. And so we're going to go through it all right now. Okay. Now, do me a favor before we get started and post in the chat where you're watching from. We like to see where people are coming in from around the world. And make sure that you're liking the podcast here and subscribing to the channel, sharing it with your friends, that sort of thing. We want to get the word out that we're on and providing this service, updating you on what's going on over here in the Middle East. Now, I'm actually, I guess, in Asia, technically, but like I said, today I got within about 6 miles of the border with Iran, and you know, we're seeing some very interesting things happen over here in Armenia relating to the conflict that's going on to their south. First of all, the Armenian military appears to be ramping up and just going to a higher level of awareness. And that's not because they're worried about Tehran attacking them or Israel attacking them. They're worried about Azerbaijan taking advantage of the chaos to make a move on, especially their southern province, this unique province where we were this morning. Azerbaijan has an exclave called Nakhichevan that's on the far side of on the west side of Armenia. The country of Azerbaijan is on the east side of Armenia, and so it's not possible for people from Azerbaijan to easily drive to Nakhichevan, their exclave, and visit their relatives. Because Armenia is in the middle, and Armenia and Azerbaijan are not speaking to one another. So they can't just drive through there easily. Azerbaijan has wanted to take this unique province for a long time. And not just this unique province, they'd like to take the whole of Armenia. They actually refer to Armenia as Western Azerbaijan, which is laughable because Armenians have lived in this land since the time of Noah. And Azerbaijan didn't even exist as a country until 1917. So there's that, right? However, Azerbaijan has a lot of oil wealth, and they are using that oil wealth to build up their military. And so right now, Azerbaijan's military is about 5 times the size of Armenia's military, and that's a big problem for Armenia. It wasn't such a problem up until the war started in Ukraine, because before that, Russia was able to act as a kind of a big brother to Armenia, and they could, you know, have peacekeepers here in Armenia to keep Azerbaijan from attacking. But as Russia's losses have mounted in the war in Ukraine, and right now they're approaching 1 million. That's dead and wounded. And actually mostly dead, because Russia doesn't take care of its wounded at all. So with that in mind, it is impossible for Russia to continue to have 10,000 troops in Armenia, safeguarding the Armenians from Azerbaijan. So they've pulled their troops out. Armenia, worried about that, has been cozying up to the European Union, France and the EU and the United States. Actually, there are U.S. troops in Armenia every week training Armenian troops on how to get rid of their old Soviet ways and pick up a more westernized force posture, techniques and procedures and strategy, military strategy. Because it has been proven in the war in Ukraine that Western military strategy is far and away better than Russian military strategy, and equipment is the same way as well. So the Armenians are looking at that and saying, well, if we don't have this big brother Russia anymore to watch over us and keep us safe, we need a big brother, so we're going to reach out to the West and try to go that direction. A lot of people here in Yerevan will tell you Armenia is a European country, and it is in many ways. It's just not located in Europe. That's the problem, right? So how does that relate to the war that we see happening in Israel and Iran right now? Well, because this unique province of Armenia touches Iran, has a 37-mile border with Iran, and because Iranians can freely cross into Armenia and back again, it's a popular destination for people from Iran here in Armenia. Actually, when Iranians get really fed up with all of the persecution and regulations and laws and everything that the oppressive government of Iran puts on them, they take a vacation to Armenia where they can dance, they can drink, they can smoke, they can do whatever they want. One of the things that they can do that they can't do in Iran is pick up a Bible and read it. And so there are groups of people here inside Armenia who are going out and reaching out to those Iranians and handing them Bibles in Farsi and giving them for the first time the chance to read a Bible. And they're actually very receptive to that. The Iranians are very open to that. As a matter of fact, Christianity is growing faster in Iran than it is in almost any other country on the planet right now. And that's very much because there are so many people who have been raised in a Muslim culture who have seen the brutality of Islam up close and personal in their own country. And they're just sick of it. They don't want that. And they're like, you know what? If Allah condones this kind of brutality, then I don't want anything to do with him. I like the Christian God better, that's a God of love and a God of peace and a God of justice. So anyway, there are groups of people here in Armenia who are reaching out to those Iranians and are helping them when they are seeking, okay? What we're finding now is since the war started, just in the last 24 to 48 hours, it looks to us, because we were just down there on the road coming out of Iran today, it looks to us like there are Iranians fleeing Iran into Armenia. Carloads and busloads of Iranians leaving Iran and coming to Armenia. Now, I don't know if that's just because it's summertime and they're coming here for a vacation, or if they're actually fleeing because of the conflict. But suffice it to say, we saw many Iranian vehicles on the road today. And so that's an interesting development. Now, many of Iran's nuclear facilities are very, very deep underground. So we're going to talk about, can Israel strike Iran with sufficient force to destroy their nuclear capabilities without help from the United States? And so to answer that question, we need to explain a little bit of the capabilities of the United States military and the Israeli military, all right? So let's start with the United States military. When it comes to blowing up things that are buried deep underground, like, centrifuges in Iran, the United States stands alone in that we have what's called a massive ordnance penetrator. It's a 30,000-pound bomb. It's about 20 feet long and about that big around. It has 30,000 pounds of explosives in it, and it can penetrate through more than 200 feet of rock and earth, or 65 feet of reinforced concrete. The problem is, very few aircraft on planet Earth can lift that bomb into the air. As a matter of fact, there's only one airframe that is certified to carry a bomb that big, and it's the B-2 stealth bomber, which was essentially built around that bomb in order to carry one of those massive ordnance penetrators inside its body so that it can maintain its small radar cross-section and penetrate deep into Iran and drop those massive ordnance penetrators on, say, the Fodor's nuclear site, which is buried under about 300 feet of rock. That's the only aircraft that can do it. Now, B-52 bombers have the payload capacity to lift that much weight, but they have never been used to carry massive ordnance penetrators or drop them. And because of that, now they talked about modifying B-52s to carry MOPS in the past, but they've just never gotten around to doing it. That doesn't mean they couldn't make that happen sooner rather than later. It is possible, but right as it stands right now, I'm going to fix this light here. There we go. I'll turn that up just a little bit. As it stands right now, the only aircraft that can fly with a massive ordnance penetrator is the B-2 bomber. And Israel doesn't have any B-2 bombers. Only the United States does. So what does Israel have? What are their capabilities here? Well, when it comes to bunker busters, we'll start with that. Israel has several different options. And since they don't have the massive ordnance penetrator, they would have to resort to multiple strikes from smaller bunker buster bombs, and we're going to talk about why that wouldn't be an ideal solution. Okay, so listen to this. They have their original bunker buster bomb. It's a GBU-28. It was made by the United States, originally developed during the Gulf War. It weighs 5,000 pounds, and it's capable of penetrating about 20 feet of reinforced concrete or 100 feet of earth. Now, one might think, this is something I've heard many people ask me, well then, if it can penetrate 100 feet and the Fodor's nuclear site is under 300 feet, wouldn't they just have to drop 3 of those in the same spot and it would dig down and destroy that deeper tunnel? Well, it doesn't actually work like that. Here's the problem. You drop one of those 5,000 pound GBU-28s, it creates a large, let's say 90-foot crater, 90 feet deep. You drop another one on it, it may go deeper, but eventually the sides of that crater are going to start to cave in. And when that happens, it actually makes it more difficult for the next bomb that you drop in that same spot because of all the loose dirt and fill that is fallen down into the crater. All the rubble that's in the crater will absorb the explosive power of the next bomb you drop on it. And so it actually gets more and more difficult to get deeper by dropping multiple bombs on the same spot. Does that make sense? So this GBU-28, the bunker buster, is the most powerful, deepest penetrating bomb that Israel has in its arsenal. But it can only get about 1/3 of the way to destroying the deepest tunnels at the Fodor's nuclear site, which is one of their most important sites. So what do they have to resort to? Well, we're going to talk about that in just a minute. But let's talk about the other bombs that are in Israel's arsenal that they could and likely are using right now as we speak on Iran. They have the GBU-27, which is called a Paveway 3. I'll get to your question in just a second. It was also developed by the United States, and it weighs 2,000 pounds. It's laser guided, so it can be very, very accurate. Laser guided missile you can put through a specific window in a specific building. It's very, very accurate, and it's only effective against moderately hardened targets like bunkers. You know, the hangars that Iran put their fighter jets in, which are concrete reinforced. One of these would go right through that and destroy the aircraft inside. So it can be carried by an F-15I, which is what Israel has, and so it's compatible with that airframe. Israel also has GBU-31 JDAMs. That's Joint Direct Attack Munition, JDAM, with a special warhead called a BLU-109. Now, it also weighs 2,000 pounds, but this one is GPS guided, which makes it not quite as accurate as a laser guided missile. But it can penetrate 4 to 6 feet of reinforced concrete. And there's a variant of that called the BLU-116, which is a more advanced penetrator that can penetrate a little more concrete than that. These are, again, likely being used on things like hangars and buildings and tunnels under the ground in Gaza that are not buried all that deep. But they're going to be quite ineffective against something that's buried 200-300 feet underground. Does that make sense? Now, there is one other, it's a missile that Israel developed themselves. They didn't get from the United States. It's called a Rampage missile. It's a long-range air-to-ground missile. Without a doubt, these are being used. There's footage of these Israeli aircraft, F-35s and F-15s and F-16s, taking off to fly to Iran carrying these Rampage missiles. So we know they're using them. And that gives them more standoff capability because they are long-range air-to-ground missiles. So the planes at the beginning of the conflict yesterday did not have to penetrate the airspace all the way into into Tehran to drop their bombs. They could drop their bombs from far outside of Tehran, and this is like a glide bomb, okay? It has a range of up to 250 kilometers, so well over 100 miles. So these planes could just penetrate into Iran to within 100 miles of Tehran, release their bombs, and those bombs would fly to their targets and not put any aircraft at risk over heavily fortified areas that have air defense capabilities. So all it takes is put two and two together and say, well, that's likely what they used then to wipe out virtually all of Iran's air defense radar and air defense capabilities, air defense artillery. Now, they have, well, I'm sorry, not air defense artillery, air defense missiles. They do have air defense artillery, but those things fire blind, essentially. I mean, if it's at night and there's planes in the sky, you just have to get lucky to hit one. It's very, very difficult. It's a big sky up there, and these guys don't have radar to aim them. They can't see the aircraft. They can only hear them, so they're just sort of firing blind. Not a lot of risk to Israeli airframes with that air defense artillery. But the radar-guided air defense missiles are another story. But so those needed to be taken out before Israel could have complete freedom of movement over Tehran. And it's very likely that they used Rampage missiles to do that. Now, they are designed for high-speed, semi-penetrating strikes on hardened targets. Air defense radars are not those. They are not semi-hardened targets for the most part. However, these bombs can be used against those things and likely were. And the upshot of all that is that in the first strikes that Israel did on Iran, they completely decimated Iran's capability to shoot at the Israeli Air Force with any amount of precision. And that opens up a whole new can of worms in this war. Because now Israel says they have, quote unquote, paved the way into Tehran. What they mean by that is they have completely decimated Iran's capabilities of shooting down their aircraft. And so now they don't have to make these, over the horizon strikes where they're dropping glide bombs from 100 miles away. They can fly right over Tehran and not just fly in, drop a bomb, and get out quickly before they target you. They can go into Tehran and just do circles over Tehran all day long. Now, obviously, they have to refuel, and that is a very big issue that they have to address, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. But assuming they can in-flight refuel, those aircraft, Israel can now have Israeli aircraft loitering over Tehran and elsewhere, Isfahan, Fodor's, Natanz. We're talking about, Bandar Abbas, everywhere. You can have jets just loitering over those locations, just waiting for Iran to pull out one of their missile launchers and try to fire them at Israel. And then they can just smoke those things right away. So this gives Israel a massive, massive advantage in this war. This is an advantage that Russia does not have. Russia does not enjoy in the war in Ukraine, because Russia has been unable to maintain air superiority over Ukraine. And so they're relegated to dropping glide bombs from inside Russia to try to bomb Kharkiv and Sumy and, Pokrovsk and all the places along the front lines. If Russia tries to fly an aircraft into Ukraine, that sucker's getting shot down in a New York minute. Helicopters are getting shot down. If they try, they can't fly almost anything but drones over Ukraine because they don't dare risk one of their aircraft over Ukraine. So what I'm saying is, Israel now in 24 hours has established complete air superiority over Iran. And that gives them tons of options that they didn't have before. So I want you to think about this for a minute, how unevenly matched these two forces are. Iran has a much bigger army. They have 500,000 people under arms. It's the largest army in the Middle East. But they're essentially worthless because they don't have anybody to attack. The Iranian army is poorly equipped, poorly trained, poorly led, poorly paid, poorly motivated, and they're not expeditionary, so they can't essentially leave Iran. They're only good if somebody tries to invade Iran on the ground. I'm talking about their conventional military forces. And so the only way that Iran can try to hurt Israel is in one of essentially two realms. Number one, the realm of missiles, because Iran does not have a sufficient air force that can reach Israel. And so their air force is essentially worthless in this fight. Their jet aircraft, their fighter aircraft, are from the 1970s. And they have a few that are upgraded, have upgraded avionics and things like that. But for the most part, not for the most part, by and large, 100%, Iran does not have a fighter aircraft that can go toe-to-toe with the fourth generation fighter jets that Israel is sending into their skies. And so any Iranian aircraft that comes up to meet the Israelis as they fly in is going to go down in flames. That's a foregone conclusion. And so you've got to take your hat off to those Iranian pilots who have, at least some of them, tried to go up and engage the Israelis and have been shot down in very short order. Okay? You gotta take your hat off to those guys, even though they're the enemy, right? Now, so the Iranians can only strike by firing missiles at Israel. Israel believes they have between 1,000 and 2,000 missiles left. However, Israel, it's not even a matter of the number of missiles, because they don't have 1,000 to 2,000 missile launchers. They only have maybe 300 to 400 missile launchers. And Israel has been making a point to destroy the launchers wherever they see them. So as soon as Iran pulls out one of those launchers and starts setting it up, and Israel sees it, there's a missile going right down their throats. And Israel's been putting out a ton of video footage showing them doing just that, destroying Iranian missile launchers on the ground. And even if they didn't, even if Iran was able to fire all 2,000 of their missiles, it's said that Ayatollah Khamenei, when he had his council of war after the first attack at an undisclosed location, when he made his decision about what the response would be, he directed the IRGC to fire 1,000 missiles at Israel. We now know that they fired somewhere in the neighborhood of about 200. So apparently they don't have 1,000, they don't have the capability to fire 1,000 missiles at once, or they are having a hard time getting those missiles out of the bunkers that they were hiding in, because Israel has already bombed the entrances to those bunkers. Either way, they were unable to come up with a solid response of 1,000 missiles as they were directed. So think about this. Israel now has complete air superiority over Iran. So that means Israel can have fighter jets just rotating in and out of Iran, striking at will anything that needs to be blown up. Just for, I mean, if they've got enough fuel and they got enough refuelers and they got enough ammo, which they certainly do, they could keep that going forever. Iran, on the other hand, every time they fire a missile, that's a one-time weapon. They fire that missile, they're never getting that missile back, they can't reuse it, and they're going to have to go get more missiles. But there's a problem with that. Israel blew up their planetary mixers in October, and they need those planetary mixers to mix the rocket fuel that they put into their missiles. So they really are unable to build any new missiles, or at least not many of them, in Iran right now. And Iran is desperately trying to buy rocket fuel from China, and that's what you saw blow up in Bandar Abbas. What was that, about a month ago, a little more, that all but destroyed the port at Bandar Abbas. It was precursor chemicals for that rocket fuel. So every day that Iran fires missiles at Israel, Iran is going to have fewer missiles in its arsenal And they get weaker and weaker and weaker as the days go on. So at the rate they're going, if we just extrapolate this out and we assume that they've got a couple thousand missiles that they could fire, again, they don't have that many missile launchers, so they're going to have to fire them, reload them. That takes sometimes up to 8 hours to reload one of those missile launchers. I mean, it's not a quick thing. It's not like they have a magazine of missiles. So in the meantime, Israel will be bombing their launchers wherever they see them and reducing the number of launchers they have. But let's say that they are able to pull off firing 200 missiles a day at Israel. Inside of 10 days, Iran will be completely out of missiles. Now, they could potentially buy new missiles. There's a non-zero chance they could get more missiles from either Russia or China or North Korea. But Russia doesn't have any to spare. China doesn't want to get involved right now. And North Korea would love to sell them missiles, but it would be complicated, to say the least, to get missiles from North Korea to Iran. Not impossible, but complicated, right? They could do it through Russia. North Korea is right now supplying Russia with hundreds of missiles that Russia is using against Ukraine. So if they can get those missiles into Russia, then all they have to do is put them in trucks, drive them down through Georgia, through Armenia, into Iran, and there you go. And we were on the highway today that those missiles would be traveling on if they were driving them from Russia to Iran. We know that that highway has been the road where they have been moving Shahed drones and drone parts out of Iran into Russia. And so if they've been able to move them that direction, they could move stuff back the other direction as well. And there's still significant amount of cargo traffic going in and out of Iran through Armenia. So that's why Armenia is such a pivotal geographic place on the planet Earth. And that's one reason why the United States ought to at least care what's going on over here. If not, actually care enough to do something about it and help Armenia kind of be able to protect itself so that it doesn't have to reach out to Russia or Iran or somebody else for help. But we'll see what happens. We're not really in the mood to help any country, even our allies right now. The American public are not real happy about all the money that we've been wasting overseas. And so there you go. Now, I just saw a question go by that I think I want to answer. Do you think Turkey or any other country will get involved since Iran is in trouble? I don't think Turkey will get involved because they're a NATO member and that could cause them problems with their NATO membership. I don't think Turkey wants to get involved. They want to keep an eye on things for sure, and they have condemned Israel's strikes on Iran, but I don't think it's likely that Turkey gets involved militarily. Now, perhaps they get involved in an asymmetric way, and I was getting to that with Iran, so we'll talk about that in a second. But, you know, I'm talking about Turkey using their hackers to try to disable stuff inside Israel or something like that, or pulling off some sort of sabotage or something like that. That's a better possibility, but I still think it's unlikely. I don't think we have to worry right now about Turkey attacking or, you know, putting its troops on ships and sending them to Haifa or something. Just, that's highly unlikely. What we have seen since this war started, this all-out war in the last 24 hours, is that virtually all the countries in the neighborhood, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Jordan, Bahrain, Qatar, Syria, Iraq, have all basically said, we're out. we don't want to have anything to do with this. So, we're just going to sit this one out. Even Hezbollah inside Lebanon has said, we have no plans to get involved to come to the aid of the people who've been giving us billions of dollars a year for the last 15 years. So that's gratitude for you. Now, folks, we got over 4,000 people watching the live, but only 333 likes or 833 likes. But suffice it to say, maybe you need a reminder. It makes a big difference in helping to show this broadcast to more people if you just go hit that thumbs up button. And it doesn't cost you anything. We're not going to spam you. It doesn't, give up your information. All it does is it tells the algorithm that YouTube uses that more people need to be watching this broadcast. So please remember to go hit that like button. It doesn't cost you anything. While you're at it, make sure that you're subscribed to the YouTube channel here at CBN News. And if you want to see more of my reporting, I'm doing these live broadcasts every day on my channel, which is called The Hot Zone with Chuck Holton. It's just at Hot Zone Podcast on YouTube. So you can go there and watch my live broadcasts that I do every day on my own. You can also go to chuckholton.com. That's chuckholton.com. Maybe one of the mods can put that up. And we have we put up a lot of extra content over at chuckholton.com. Articles, photographs, videos, documentaries. My books are available over there. Some of them for free downloads if you're a supporter. So I recommend that you go to chuckholton.com and sign up to subscribe or become a supporter over there as well. Okay, enough of that. Now, let's move on. As I said, Israel does not have the organic capability to completely destroy Iran's nuclear facilities. And what that means is that they're going to have to just target the entrances to those facilities and try to collapse them. In so doing, they can only slow down Iran's nuclear ambitions somewhat, maybe by months or years. But all it takes is some heavy machinery to dig those things back out, and they're back in business. So if they only use the capabilities that Israel has, they are not going to be able to completely wipe out Iran's nuclear capabilities. Now, what else could they do to damage Iran's ability to make a nuclear weapon? How could they set them back even further? Well, there's certain things they could do. Oh, and I missed one Israeli-developed precision-guided glide bomb. It's called the Spice 2000, and we have seen some of those being used in this war already. Spice 2000 is a 2,000-pound bomb. It can be equipped with that special penetrating warhead called the BLU-109. It's used for precision strikes on bunkers and fortified targets. So no aircraft in Israel's fleet can carry the one munition that they really need to do the job right. Only the United States has that capability. And so far, the U.S. has been saying that they are unwilling to join Israel in an offensive capacity against Iran. Now, the United States has already joined Israel in a defensive capability, in a defensive capacity. The United States has 1,000 troops on the ground in Israel right now. And those guys are manning anti-missile batteries, THAAD missile batteries. That's terminal high-altitude air defense missiles. And Patriot missile batteries inside Israel. And in fact, U.S. soldiers have been heavily engaged in shooting down some of the munitions that Iran has been sending their way. So there are U.S. troops on the ground in Israel in harm's way right now. So you need to be praying for those guys. But not only that, the United States has been lending